What is up, traders, and welcome back to another live stream. Here we are trading again the overall equity market, and in this case it's going to be NVDA, as it has been a nice mover over the past couple days, and we kind of want to teeter off a little bit from Tesla, which has had a lot of headline risk in my opinion. It's been a lot in the news, and most recently any type of new post either from President Trump or from the CEO Elon Musk can move the stock quite well, and possibly against our position. So in this case, we're going to do a little bit more of a risk off assessment and trade NVDA here on the day. Overall, the rundown has been pretty intense. The market is in a way in a cautious tone. The overall S&P 500 saw a strong downward move during the pre-market, as well as the overall NASDAQ, but we are now starting to see a slow bounce and recuperation of the movement. So to run it off, we're going to go to the Uplift Markets newsletter right here, and this, like I said, it's posted every day before the market opens to give you guys the news insights, what's moving the markets, and the trade of the day. So in this case, the market has been really cautious on basically the Israeli strike on Iran, sparking this global volatility. Like I said, Israeli airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites roil the global markets. Oil prices have soared around 8%, stocks have dropped, and safe havens rally. For example, like gold and more defensive names. Defensive name, and for example like gold, right? So the tensions may escalate further, and for us, NVIDIA stands strong as our trade of the day or the week amid rising volatility and investor caution. Some economic data that came in, it was pretty important, was the Michigan consumer sentiment, which actually came in higher than the forecast. So nice sentiment, that was quite well. And also the Michigan 5-year inflation expectations actually came in lower than the expected. So we can take a little fast look at that right here. So right here, right? So the Michigan consumer sentiment came in higher than the forecast, which is pretty bullish, good news. And the 5-year inflation came in lower than the forecast at 4.1% expected. Although the market, when this news came out, didn't really react to it, as we have the overall negative sentiment, kind of cautious on basically the overall Middle East tensions that we're having, unfortunately. Oil has surged over 8% on the fears that Iran could disrupt supply by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Very important. Stocks fell globally, with Asian markets hitting the hardest, and amid the mounting volatility. So some of the safe havens have been increasing. U.S. Treasuries, gold, Japanese yen, and Swiss franc all rallied. Kind of a conservative hold there. And analysts have been also warning that this may halt the recent stock rally that we've been seeing in the markets ever since that bounce around mid-April, and amplify stagnation flares, especially with ongoing tariff uncertainty. So the trade of the week is NVIDIA here. So despite the geopolitical risk, NVIDIA remains a leader in the AI and semiconductor field, offering the resilience to the innovation. And as investors rotate into tech amid inflation fears, NVIDIA's fundamentals and momentum make it a compelling watch. So even though we're talking about the overall markets and having that kind of like that risk, NVIDIA is quite strong. Despite the news, I don't believe it's going to be too heavily impacted. Also, it's above the Anchored VWAP swing high. It's above its 50 EMA on the daily and across the majority of time frames. There's strong institutional demand amid AI boom, so I believe there's going to be a lot of continued buying here. And there's also the recent dip offered a potential entry on the strength. So these dips that we're seeing, for example, like this dip, obviously, getting NVIDIA under $100, that was quite nice. And then these dips that we see as well. Nice to see that nice dips here. 130 held and went higher. So kind of important to look out for that. And like I said, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is just sign up, become a member, and you get free access to this. So going back to the markets, and we're standing here. So basically, on NVIDIA, we opened lower, and right now the stock is showing underlying weakness right now because we are below the 50 EMA right here. So if we take this off, let me clear this up for you guys. So this is the VWAP for the session. Okay, so we kind of get a legend. So the 9 EMA is this red line right here, pretty much. The 15 is a turquoise right here. The yellow is a 50 EMA, and the 200 is this white line, right? So what I've been saying is when a stock is below its 50 EMA on an intraday standpoint here, it's showing that there's underlying weakness. So that means that the sellers are generally in control of the name so far. And something that also is adding to the bearish sentiment right now so far is that we made a death cross on the 5-minute. And what I mean by that is that the 50 crossed below the 200, showing that there is that weakness. And it was funny though, at that exact same point we saw, a nice bounce here off this previous anchored VWAP from a low. It was a quite nice area to possibly go long and target the VWAP, but like I said, there's underlying strength. The 50 EMA slope still declining, showing, like I said, the weakness that exists on NVIDIA, particularly here. And yeah, below the 200 EMA, showing that overall weakness. We also placed an anchored VWAP from this high, and as you guys can see, we kept trying to bid up, rejected, bid up, and rejected. So that's what was a signal for the short entry at around 142.65. We have been holding the position after this bounce because it's like a pop. And usually want to short the pops when there's underlying weakness in the name here. So I'm not going to be able to disclose my share size here, but we are pretty much kind of flat now that the price is moving towards our entry price here of 142.72. This level here, it's kind of showing us that weakness. We can kind of prompt, see if we can hold maybe a defined entry again, maybe add into the position here at the break of this swing low anchored VWAP. So we kind of factor in this low that was formed here because an important low. We found support. There was buyers picking it up. So right now we're kind of, in a way, kind of between these two. So it's showing that there is right now a battle between the buyers and sellers, and we generally don't want to, go against it, right? We don't. How do I say? We don't want to get involved right now when the price action is between these two, as it's showing that there is basically an ongoing battle and there's no clear decision of where to go. Generally, these kind of consolidations between these VWAPs basically tend to resolve around, I'd say, 90% of the time in the direction of the primary trend on the day. So on the day, the trend is to the downside. So we should expect that we do go below the swing low anchored VWAP and continue the downside continuation and trying to challenge the lows. And the other 10% usually shows a reversal, which would be up here. So we have two cases, and we have to understand and just be patient right now. The market is kind of, giving us the signal that there's no need to have any action right now. We just got to wait, be patient, allow the market to show us where the overall price action is headed and where it can go. But I believe that, if we do break above, we will encounter some resistance up here, right? So we'll see. Also, we got to factor in that today is Friday, and a lot of options expiring today. So we got to kind of count that in within here our analysis if we're going to go long or we're going to continue with the short thesis here that we have on the name. Yeah, overall, the triple Q has been bouncing. If you take a little look at that, we have been bouncing. So, we had a strong decline. We found a bounce here at around 7:30. I always note this, that around 7:30 we start, if we're in a downtrend, we start seeing a reversal around that same time. I don't know, I guess they just turn on the algo and they just say buy at a discount, I guess. I don't know. It's quite suspicious that it's always around that time. And you guys can note that too, go back and kind of back test the strategies, and look at around 7:30 to 10:30 Eastern time. Around that hour between 7 and 8, there's always some type of reversal, some type of I guess they turn on the algo. So right now we had a nice break above VWAP, and let's say we are moving pretty high. We're moving here on the overall triple Qs, but we're still below the 50, so I'm not too bullish. Pretty much, I'm not like, yeah, right now is a long entry here. I'm still pretty short biased, not based on the news. Obviously I factor that in a little bit, but I'd say that 10% is based on the news of my thesis, and 90% of that thesis is based on the technicals, the numbers, right? How the market is in real time reacting to the news, right? So that's what you want to take into consideration here, not just the news, because like I said, the numbers never lie. Looking at, let's see, 10-minute time frame here on the triple Q, we're seeing that nice bounce as well, so not bad. IBIT has kind of been, oh, look at that nice momentum on IBIT. It's kind of also seeing that nice bounce, but I mean, like I said, towards the 50 EMA, I'm seeing some potential resistance. All depends. I don't believe we can possibly get above it, but we'll have to see. It may prove me wrong, so we'll have to see what the market does. Additionally, apart from that, we're also seeing Palantir moving up quite well. These defense names. See, so when it's above the 50, there's underlying strength, right? So there's like a short-term trend. You could have been like, oh, this is the initiation of the short, right? But you got pretty much caught off guard, and it got found support at the 50 EMA, and buyers came in because there's underlying strength. And what I mean by that is that there's like hidden buyers, like buyers just waiting for the price to come to that level and just buy it, and they're getting a pretty nice discount here. Think about it. They're getting the price below the VWAP, and they're getting it at a nice area of support here at the 50. So it's like a nice deal, right? If they're looking at add into the position, right? So they would have been long around 135. Stock is keep appreciating. Palantir, I believe, is going to be pretty strong on the day, so I don't expect any type of downside move. Right, so I know I'm seeing upward wicks, but Palantir is looking pretty strong. Additionally from that, with all these tensions, unfortunately, these belligerencies, there's a lot of defensive names that are up, for example, like Palantir, and we can also look at Lockheed Martin, also up. So see, like, we are above the 50 EMA, the stock is above its VWAP. Although it's in a range, it gapped up quite nice here during the pre-market, and it's still above these key indicators of 50, the 15, the 9. Although it's in a range, it's strong on the day. We could say that relative to the overall market. As you guys can see, looking at the triple Qs, you guys see that rejection. So like I said, we went towards, let's say we went towards a 50 EMA. It looks like we're encountering some resistance with this wick here. Like I said, we'll have to see if it does reject fully, maybe some type of candles toward here. Right, so we would see something like this to fully determine if it was an actual rejection. So something like that, right? So that would be a rejection, but let's say we are seeing some sellers here at this price, right? So, and also a high volume candle, as you guys can see on the bottom, kind of suspicious here, right? So we're seeing an intense buying volume candle, but we're not seeing any increased upside move, right? So it's kind of a warning sign there. So yeah, we were looking at Lockheed Martin, and pretty strong on the day. Boeing now is actually it was actually down, but now it's recuperating. May find resistance at the 50. It may, like I said, it was kind of down. I think based on the news, let me check. There was like being able to ground. Yeah, Boeing faces scrutiny over being, yeah, that's true. The crash that unfortunately happened yesterday in India kind of impacted the name there. You're kind of testing a strategy here, kind of seeing, if it works here. Little strategy. Like I said, it's a simulators. We're practicing this shift here, little paradigm, but yeah, it's not looking too bad. Let's see if there's some recent news. I like to see if there are any recent news here on the stock. So we got the good old uplift markets here. So here it is, airline stocks plummet. There it is, the news. So it's like airline stocks, and this is recent, right? Posted today, absolutely amazing. Our team is doing an astounding job in posting, the news and staying up to date and informed with the markets as well. So, I'm really happy with our team here. So it says airline stocks plummet amidst Israel-Iran conflict, travel fears. Okay, so the Israel-Iran conflict is sending ripples through global markets, with airline stocks taking a significant hit. Increased uncertainty and fears about travel safety are prompting consumers to reconsider their travel plans, right? And also with the factor that oil is up, so it's kind of more expensive for the airline. So it's like double the negative news for the airline stocks. So let's see. Yeah, geopolitical risks. Yeah, geopolitical uncertainty is a major deterrent to travel. Airline stocks prices are highly sensitive to international conflicts, and oil. Yeah, there it is. See, increased fuel prices can significantly impact the airline profitability. Exactly, that's what we're saying. So, kind of important to look out for there. That type of analysis and overall shift. Let's see. Interesting. Now, so looking at Boeing here, okay, not bad. Going back to NVDA, seeing how it's performing. Looks like it's encountering a little bit of some buyers coming in and here, but let's see, break. I don't know. I wouldn't say this is too much of a bullish move. We'll have to see though. It's not convincing me. It's still below the 50 MA. Yeah, pretty much showing that underlying weakness that exists right there. Let's check the majority of the Max 7. So let's take a little look at Netflix here. Actually doing quite well on the day. I don't believe this name is going to be too heavily impacted. It's mostly software, not really impacted by tariffs nor any type of geopolitical risk. So that one is really deterred. It's more just reacting alongside what the market is doing, right? So I'm not too scared about Netflix here. I believe there's still more appreciation here for the stock, especially when it comes to a daily. We've been holding above the key area of the 1200 flat, and so we found support exactly at that level today at around 730, and the initiation of the reversal. Let's say we're now closing above the 50, so who knows, right? We'll have to see. We can also use here the volume profile, kind of get a gauge here of any type of volume profiles that massive. So right here, this area, you guys can see this intense volume from yesterday that came in. So we could overall say that this area has a lot of liquidity right here, as you guys can see. So we may find some resistance at these overall levels. Get that there. So there's a lot of liquidity here at this point here, so we may find some kind of halt action, maybe some consolidation around these levels here on Netflix. But yeah, this one's looking strong on the daily, and right now 5 minute I'm not too worried about that one. Let's look at another one that's also been on the play here, AMD. This name has also been quite strong. It's still below its 50 MA, although it did find like pretty much everything. Found a bounce at 730 exactly. It's kind of suspicious, I'm not going to lie. I guess you just turn on the algo. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm guessing there's a lot of liquidity here at the zone if we use a volume profile. We are right, so there's a lot of liquidity at the zone, and what that means basically is that we may find some type of halt, some type of trouble getting above any type of levels here around above 119. So we may kind of see some consolidation, and we may see the sellers bring down the stock price down, and it kind of forms confluence with the 50 MA here. So something to take a note of right at that point. Let's see. Looking at, so AMD, we saw that. Netflix, AMD. Oh, Meta as well. Meta's been not too worried about this one either. Pretty strong, but still, right here. So you guys can see, right, we're a lot of heavy volume here, a lot of liquidity, and it's kind of, that's what's slowing the price action down. So I'm saying Meta's going to be probably pretty flat on the day. It's probably going to be within a range. So we'll probably see, the stock kind of, just do this throughout the whole session, just within the range, right? Obviously not to scale, these are not to scale, but within this like range here, because a lot of liquidity at this area here, basically based on these pockets here of volume. So that's my take on that. I think everything's seeing a bounce, basically like a V recuperation. Basically, that's pretty much what I'm seeing here across here some of the equities. So we have also NVDA, see how Tesla's doing on that. Actually, it's looking quite nice. It's pretty, yeah. But now we're seeing some type of resistance here at the 50, and maybe encountered. Here's some resistance at the 50. It all depends if this decides to hold. But Tesla, like many others, have been seeing a bounce here at around the $730 level. I mean 730 and time frame, and it's bouncing off the 314 around that area. See if there's some volume. Yeah, so there's a lot of volume here. See, so that's where we're having some trouble getting above. So we're starting to see these wicks. So if we break above this, then the next area of resistance would be around this zone of 323, 322. But I don't know, we're still below the 50 EMA. We haven't cleared it yet with sufficient force, so I wouldn't be too bullish on Tesla. And apart from that, if we zoom out maybe on a longer time from here, looks like we fell below a little bit here of the, put a swing low anchored VWAP there. Looks like we kind of found a little bit of support here, kind of buyers picking up the price. But we're still below the 50 MA, so we'll have to see what happens there on Tesla. Looks like we may find some resistance there at around that price. Check on Oracle, one of the strongest cloud names that had earnings. I'm not too sure. It's still strong. Doesn't care what the market's doing. Doesn't care about the negative sentiment. It's just the monster going back up. It's been strong ever since the open, and it's been appreciating in price. A very, very nice uptrend. This is what we want to see here in stocks. This nice uptrend, not just this flat consolidated mode that we're seeing in the triple Qs like this. Like, okay, you're in a range, but you can obviously go off, off this low, but it's just so choppy. It's so boring to trade. But just look at Oracle, right? So it's just such a move. You define, okay, pulls back to VWAPs, such a textbook trade. Gaps up, pulls back to VWAP, finds support, and just breaks above, right? So 205 could have been the long here. I'm not in the name here, but analyzing it, it would be it's a very strong name to probably partake in here. Using yesterday's price action and the range here, let's see if we kind of get this out of the way. So yeah, bounce off. Okay, pivot points there. So using yesterday's price action, we had a strong upward move yesterday. I remember it was quite strong. It gapped up after the earnings here. They came quite well. They increased the revenue, and they beat on EPS as well. I think they guided future growth of cloud infrastructure to be around like 70%, which is I think is absolutely just mind-blowing. Basically, if you take a minute to to actually read the earnings call and the fundamentals, it's a very strong company. I'm looking at to enter this name here on the longer term account. It's looking strong on cloud here, and it makes sense. There has to be all this cloud to store the information, to train the AIs, and this new basically revolution that's happening here with technology. nice movement. So if we utilize yesterday's price action, we had a nice gap up, strong. We never went below the VWAP or anything like that. We found a little bit of support here at the 50. I mean, we kind of found this kind of range yesterday, right? And look where we came back and found support. So we broke above it, came back. We kind of tested it here, and it was only upside from there. So buyers were really intense yesterday off the close, and that's quite nice to see. Also, let's see, using volume profile, and right there, so there was a lot of liquidity there, right? And since we broke above the liquidity, basically we opened above that zone. So pretty much, if we kind of scan this like this, like so, let me take this off. That's what we found. We never even came to it, right? We found support off those high liquidity zones there, and it's just upside from there. So this name is strong. I would honestly just buy on pullbacks, but looks like the recent pullback just happened already. It got caught at the 15 EMA. Yeah, when a strong is really trendy, it tends to have the pullbacks right here, like the pullbacks being caught either at the 9 EMA or the 15 EMA, which generally catches them if there's like basically a shift in the trend, and overall there's less buyers and we actually can pull back towards VWAP. It would be an absolutely amazing buy, and try to see if it holds at VWAP, and try to enter as the momentum kind of builds up. So what I mean by this is that slowly, if buyers kind of step things down, they kind of digest the move that we've been seeing here intraday, we may see some selling taking, maybe some profit taking, or sellers trying to emerge here at this level, and we may see pull back towards the the VWAP here intraday. So I'm not saying this is going to happen exactly like this, but over time this could be happen basically on the day. So we see this, right, and then we may see kind of like a fake out to capture even more people here, some liquidity, and may have the good old let's see if I can draw this properly. The good old like wick, right? The wick candle, and then this would highly form above that, find some support, and it would show that there was strength after the dip. And when this happens, then this could be like looking like a good long, as the name is strong on the day, and stop loss could be placed here at this low 206, and yeah, that would be a nice play there. But right now Oracle's looking strong. Another name also is Wall. It's Oklo. It's been mentioned quite heavily here, and investor sentiment there. So yeah, it's pumping up, finding a little bit of resistance here at the 50 EMA. But looking at this name on a more of a daily, it's okay. From this high, we formed a nice high yesterday, and we saw selling from 1050 all the way towards the close. So I guess there was some algo that decided to put the stock down lower. So what we can do here is to see, we can plot a swing high anchored VWAP here at this high, and any close above here. So I think $65 would be a long here at around that level, kind of consolidating here between these two VWAPs, and that high and this VWAP intraday. So any close above that, and also it would be finally above the 50 EMA. So that would be for us a nice long signal there for the stock. Let's see, pulling back towards Tesla. Yeah, so now it's above its 50 EMA. Look at that. Damn, look at that. It's catching some bids, but yeah, we'll have to see what it does here at the zone. Check on triple Q. Yeah, finding a little bit of resistance, maybe pulling back towards one of these EMAs. Yeah, and overall there hasn't been any like recent news that may impact us right now. Check Palantir. Yeah, see, it's just really strong on the day, and it's an absolute beast. This name is just amazing. It's intense. So yesterday's high was formed here. We go back here. Yesterday's high. It's very important. Just look at this pattern here. So we know that the highs and the lows are very important to take into account, right? So basically, this price action doesn't exist. So we're looking right here, right? So this is Thursday. Stock pumps up, okay, like that, closes at around this area. So we saw that we made an important high at 136, right? So we would see, okay, some support here, pretty much. If the stock broke below 134.78, it would be a short, and if it went above that area, which was the high of the day, which was in a way we treat it as resistance, if it breaks above that, then it would be a long. So stock opens, finds some support, breaks above it right here. So let me just zoom that in right there so you guys can see that on the right side here. There it is. So it opens early in the day, breaks above the resistance. We'd like to see maybe a candle close above it like this. So there it is, that propulsion. So that's a signal for the long, and a stop loss could be placed here at 135.11, the low of the day right there. And then boom, right, stock keeps going above. You want to been stopped down, find support at the 50, right, and now continuing towards the upside. Still continuation. There it is right there, right? So never broke below this area at all, showing, like I said, underlying strength existing within the asset. Also as well, it's still above its upward sloping 50 and upward sloping 200, right? So you gotta guys kind of take that into account there. Also, for example, using yesterday, right? So actually it's from Tuesday. So you look at this important low that was formed. So you can say this low and this high that was formed. If it breaks below this low, then it would be a short on the next day. So and if it breaks above this area here, then it would be a long. So it opens, a couple candles stay above it, we pull back, and look where we find support. Look at those intense wick. Buyers came in intensely at that level, defending it. Look at that lower wick on these candles, right? And there it is, and it pumps up. That was a nice support level for the next day, and there it was. It was strong throughout the whole day. Came back to VWAP, tested it, and still held quite strong until kind of we were kind of trading below it, and yeah, kind of lost the momentum here. So this would have probably would have been the out here. So quite nice to see that. You can also go back and just see that it did match that, right? So for example, here on Palantir, we had a nice important high that was formed. So this price action does not exist yet. It's an important high that was formed there, and a low that was formed at around here. Let's just go back to Palantir. Let's say we took it off a little bit. Yeah, Palantir, right? And formed an important low, and look where so we were kind of ranging between that for the next day. So this was a Friday 6th, and we're looking at Monday 9th, June 9th. So stock opens kind of trading between that range, so we can say it's rangy on the day. The 50 finally closed above the 50 EMA, seeing some upside momentum there, and there it is, finding support. There's a break, hold, now break here, a higher high formation. So break above 128.82 would signal the long, and there it is. So that was a long entry. Stop loss could be placed at any of this recent and relevant higher lows. And let's see, keeps continuing higher towards the upside. It continues holding the 50 EMA, the 15, the 9, hugs the price action quite well, and it was strong during the whole day, right? So it kind of allows you guys to see when those levels break. We also implement that here. So there was an important important low formed here, important recent high. We came back, and that was the area of support, right? So just noting all these areas here is quite important. So going back to NVIDIA and the stock and see how it's performing. Let's see. Looks like it's finding some buyers here, but as you can see, for example, we have a high that was formed yesterday. So using that same thesis, we have a low that was formed. So this would be the green. So we clearly opened below that. So it shows that the buyers failed to hold this during the pre-market, and it's kind of showing the bearish sentiment that exists here within the stock, basically, right? Yeah, seeing that downward move. So we may see that resistance at the 50 MA. Quite nice. Same thing for yesterday, right? It formed a low there, formed a high there. The low found support exactly right there. A break that was a quite nice long. You know, we can do the same thing for Tesla, right? See how it's doing on the overall name, right? So it's now rebounding, kind of finding some resistance there. Not going to lie. So we formed an important low right there, and we formed a high right there. So see how we're between this range. We may find resistance there at that high, pretty much. Interesting. Very strong right there. Yeah, but if you zoom out here on NVIDIA, kind of see what the price has been doing. It did find support there, but kind of scale it out. It's kind of within this range here, right? And generally, when a stock is rangy, it's kind of difficult to trade intraday because there's a lot of whippy action, a lot of wick saws, not a lot of moves towards the upside. And sample, same thing here, right? But when we break above a decisive range, for example, like here, right, we're in a range, we zoom that out, we break above here. So this nice move is what we want to see in the stock, right? There's that appreciation there. Gives us more confidence that the moves can be more decisive, as it would have strength. Obviously, we want to see volume coming in, right, supporting the upward move, not just upward movement in price, but decline in volume. You don't want to see that. Shows pretty much underlying weakness there on the asset. Looking here. 5-minute. And it's like it's trying to break above its 50 EMA. It was very funny though. It came to this area and it didn't even come close to the pivot point. Usually, where it's very very close. Which is very sus. Let's see. Yeah, the point of control was there. Using say extended hours trading pre-market. We see that we were quite below this area for quite a while. Even the pre-market is showing us that this range was quite decisive. A lot of volume was transacted. This point of control here, this line here in the middle, this white line emerged in there. I know there's a lot of lines here on the chart, but we kind of want to see the confluence being formed here. So let's see them take off those EMAs. It's kind of showing decisiveness where the buyers and sellers are at. There basically, right? So yeah, it's very 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 suspicious. Now looks like we're just gonna keep going higher. Looks like there's no resistance, honestly. Yeah, we're breaking above the 200 as well. It's funny, we broke below this as well, the volume area low. Just very suspicious as to why. I don't understand why we're moving up. Yeah, it's like we're just gonna keep going up here. So it's like there was no resistance at the 50 MA, and actually keep going high right there. So we're going higher. Yeah, so pretty much we could say that NVIDIA is overall strong, not just NVIDIA but the overall market. It's like it's found its footing here a little bit, and I mean there's still a lot of hours left on the trading day, around 4 hours. It's quite early to say that it won't decline, but right now it's seeing some buying here, basically. Some buyers ever since 7:30. It's a little bit more than an hour since that occurred. We're going for now an hour and a half of just pure buying here. I guess they turned on the algo. Yeah, I found support there. I was surprised. I thought we would probably find support a little bit deeper instead of just this level, probably towards the $140 level, but it looks like we didn't. We actually found it before it, right? And it's just important to note that when we have pivot points, it's not a precise level with pretty much with any indicator. It's not just a precise level just because it touches it or it gets near to it. Doesn't have to pretty much touch it exactly at that point. It's generally an area, and it looks like we did find that support there, although I did expect more downside move here after seeing these intense candlesticks, showing rejection of the price, bringing the price down lower. But yeah, we found the buyers there. Analyzing the pre-market, yeah, we failed below this key area here. We're still above. So I think we will find the resistance. It's coming in right now. Look at that candle. It's like it's coming in. Yeah, I'm not buying the long here. Like it's just something's not. It doesn't feel right. I feel like this is maybe a bull trap here, kind of tricking people at their strength here in the market. Um, like I'm seeing here on the longer time frames. For example, pulling up a 15-minute chart. You see this, right? So, we're moving up, but why are we seeing the price kind of reject these levels? So it's kind of contradictory to what the price action should be doing if it were a nice upward move. Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, the longer trends are not that bad though. But yeah, just take a look at the triple Q and see how it's doing. So yeah, nice bid. It's pulling up to a pivot point. We may find some resistance there at this pivot point S1. Yeah. Let's take a look at the SPY. Yeah, same thing. Strong bid now above the $600 level. Yeah, NVIDIA just hasn't seen that movement, huh? Very, very suspicious. Looks like that's where we're finding some resistance there on NVIDIA right there. So you got Tesla. Yeah, that's where I'm finding the resistance as well. Like we said, TSLL finding resistance at the 200. Yeah, see, that's where it's finding resistance now. Like I said, like it went above the 50, this yellow line, but the 200 EMA, it's kind of quite heavy on the price action. And the overall reason as to why I'm looking short on the overall Nasdaq here is because based on this volume profile, we broke below the volume area low, which could be kind of thought of as a level of support from the prior day, right? So having that into account, and kind of just marking it basically. And let me just clear this for you guys. And we look closely on the pre-market trading session. We clearly we fell below that yesterday, so I kind of prompted a short here. This was a nice move, right? But as we can see, we're still below that, right? So it's showing that buyers failed to hold that level yesterday. So it's showing that there aren't as decisive as holding the power here for the price action. And that's where we're finding the resistance, so at the 200 EMA, right? So kind of important to note. Going back to the overall regular trading hours and kind of digesting the news here, that's where we're finding the resistance there at the 200. Yeah. Seeing the triple Qs. Yeah, it's still above the 50. Right there, above the VWAP obviously, but the 50 EMA here showing some type of inclination. And we have a death cross here. We formed a 50 EMA below the 200. So looking at Palantir, that one's strong, and then wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, strong on the day. Just barely finding resistance at the pivot point. But like I see, like I'm telling you guys, like when a stock is above its 50, there's underlying strength, right? It got bought up exactly at that level, the 50 EMA. Also 200 going up, right? But the 50 EMA is such a key indicator. And you guys can see with yesterday's price action Thursday, we were below it for the majority of the day. We kind of went above it for a little bit, but sellers came in aggressively as long as we're below the 50 EMA, right? Above the 50 EMA, the trend is towards upside, like I said. So that's why on the triple Qs, I was noting that, right? Like, okay, we were below the 50 EMA for the majority of the day here. So far, it's already around 9 a.m. or 12 p.m. Eastern time here. But like maybe it's probably what we're seeing here from Palantir yesterday. So comparing this to Palantir, we were below the 50 EMA for the majority of the day here. Looking at this here, the 50, then we kind of had a little wick, but found sellers bringing it down again. So that's kind of what we want to see on the triple Qs. Some breaks above, but some sellers coming in more intensely here at this low. That's what we would want to see to bring the price action down lower. Overall. And just looking at NVDA here, right, on the 15 EMA, it's rejecting the 50 EMA, like I said. See, right there. It's showing the underlying weakness that exists here on the name. Yeah, but I just hope we're not choppy throughout the day. I really hope that we have nice moves. Right now we're looking towards the downside. Hopefully we see a downside move here. Trying to be short here the name, but with this rally that we had, I don't know, it's just very suspicious here. And it was very suspicious that the buying came in exactly at that level. We're also kind of seeing a divergence, right? Increase in volume, increase in the price action, right? You guys can see that clearly, but the volume has been declining. The buying volume has declining, so it's kind of showing some weakness here. And buying kind of stopping, selling kind of emerging here at these volume right here at this low. So it's kind of showing us that the buyers are slowly being less and less each time. And we're seeing that kind of happen here on the triple Q, right? And compare that to Palantir, right? Buyers have been nothing but controlling. They've been the majority of here the levels, but the majority of the controllers. Looking at Tesla as well. Finding resistance at the 200. There it is. 200 resistance. There. Let's check on Boeing. Okay, it's 200 EMA. It's pretty far away from it. Pretty far. But see if you find some sellers bringing the price down below the 50 EMA. It's also may find resistance though at this pivot point in confluence with this, so it may pull back finally here on Boeing like this. You know, so we'd like to see that candle towards the downside, signify that that was a rejection. All right, looking now at back in IBIT, see Bitcoin, yeah, kind of pulling back a little bit here. The 50 EMA still declining overall. See GE, okay, gap down, but finding okay, a little bit of accumulation here on GE. See OCLO, or is it UCLO? Yeah, this one's getting above its 50 EMA. Here. Break and close. So break, close above 65. Kind of signaled along here on OCLO. So it's looking quite strong. See, like the 50 EMA is, you know, slowly curling up. We're above the 200 EMA, right? So probably put a trigger here and an alert to get notified of that price action on OCLO. So then in AMD, yeah, see, it's finding resistance at the 50. Quite nice to see right there. So found buyers here at this low. Yeah, but the sellers are still here. It's actually kind of forming confluence with this prior day close, which would kind of be the resistance, right? Because failed support, right? We got down below. We kind of were testing it back, you know, testing prior support, now acting as possible resistance area here, possibly having the price reject and go towards the VWAP here at average price of 116 and 42 cents right there. We'll see how this develops, but I do like this, you know, decisive candle that broke below that right there. I am liking that right there. See how Netflix is reacting. That one, I'm not too. Yeah, that one's just going up. Yeah, this one's not too heavily impacted by, you know, tariffs, so I'd say any type of geopolitical tensions overall. Still looking bullish. Yeah, it came back and, you know, okay, so it looks like OCLO, we got alerted that it's crossing above that area, so pulling back to OCLO. Let's see if this does manage to close. Yeah. Let's see, OCLO. Not bad. Checking again on the triple Qs. Yeah, still going up, so we probably won't see any resistance until the 200 EMA on the overall NASDAQ. See, I wonder if it's the same thing for the SPY. Yeah, actually this reached already the 200, so we'll see if there's some rejection there, some kind of some sort. Yeah, using the volume profile pretty much from yesterday. Yeah, we failed, so this should act as a level of resistance. The $602 level should act, and it's forming actually confluence with the pivot point, so that should act as a level of resistance if we do break above that. Right there's if we do reach it, 602 with 35 cents right there. Yeah, yeah, that would be pretty much an area where the price can possibly reject. Right here, 602.35. So I'll probably place an alert. Let's see, when the price action gets at around that level, an alert on SPY 602.24. Probably like to fade that price action in towards the 50 MA, take some profit off there, and try to ride the rest towards VWAP. See if it doesn't just break down from there. So SPY. Let's take on Amazon. Yeah, see how that's doing. Yeah, quite strong, quite strong. That was, everything just rebounded quite nicely off 730. That was such a nice bounce. But here, like I said, this looks like we're finally above this liquidity zone here that we had, kind of, see how we saw some type of, wicking action here, some difficulties getting above that level, so we have to see. Yeah, you actually see like this level, the volume area low, here on Tuesday, June 10th, here on Amazon. So here's an area high, the area low, and once we broke that low, pretty much that was a short right there off the break of 215 right there, kind of, and we actually came back and tested this prior area that we pretty much fell through right here, and we was prompted towards the downside, right? Obviously, finding next support at around the pivot points right there, right? So it's important to factor that in to our analysis as well. And right now, Amazon's pretty strong on the day, showing significant upside moves. So I'm guessing we'll also be seeing that on NVDA right there as well. Yeah, we're also seeing that then. Some upward moves. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully this name isn't too consolidative. Doesn't just range between the day here. Hopefully it gives us and allows us to enter the name with a decisive trend here. Yeah, so overall, NVIDIA found some resistance though here at the 50 MA. I'm not too surprised by that. But so far, it's been showing a nice rally, like I said, from this low of around 730, signifying that buyers were present at around that area. Also showing that there. So we want to look at the overall sector, And what I mean here is by looking at triple Q, seeing how it's reacting. So yeah, we broke above. We had a candle close above the 50 EMA. Looks like we're now moving towards here the 200 EMA. I wouldn't be too surprised if we do encounter some resistance. As you guys can see, basically this was yesterday's price action here. We were kind of rangy, and we had a high here of around 534 and a low here of around 532. So wouldn't be too surprised if we encounter some resistance there, some type of pullback here on the overall triple Q, signifying that some sellers were present there on the name, right? So yeah, let's see, scaling this out, and it's just kind of clearing up the data here. Let's see, 10 minutes, looking at an overall longer term time frame here. Yeah, so we zoom out, we did a nice crossover. So we've been trending in a way towards the upside here ever since the beginning pretty much of the month. We've been trending upside. We've had our declines, we find support at the 200, and then we end up closing a little bit higher than that, right? So we've been initiating uptrend, holding above, we pull back, find support at the 200. This is a 10-minute chart, by the way. We go up, find support, we pull back, find support again at the 200 there, and we bid up. And looks like right now we kind of gap down below 200, and we actually looks like we're going toward it again. So just we'll see if we actually end up recuperating it. But the overall triple Q right now, it's just been a mess. Look at this chop of EMAs, right? So right here you could have been okay, we were uptrending, right, and then we had a bearish crossover at around this price, and you could have gone short, but then you would have realized, okay, we're back above it again, right? We formed now a cross. And what I mean by this here, for example, is right here, right? So you see a death cross right there, right, at this low, and you could have been, okay, it's time to short it. So you would have went short, and then a couple days after, you would have been confused again, seeing, okay, now we're seeing a golden cross, basically the 50 EMA crossing above the 200 is a golden cross, death cross is the 50 going down below the 200 EMA. So you would have probably been stopped out of your price action level here, only to see the stock pretty much appreciate over the upcoming days, right? So when this happens, we kind of want to leave it alone. It becomes very difficult trading it on a intraday time frame, on a day trade, unless you're a really decisive scalper. But for example, here we want to see uptrending days, decisive holds above the 50 EMA. Obviously the pullbacks were caught quite well at the 200 EMA, right? But then we failed it below, but then you see we go above it again, right? So that's why when you're in doubt, it's always good to zoom out. We go to different time frames. For example, here's a 15-minute time frame, and analyzing here the price action, you see this 15-minute time frame. So right now, obviously we are uptrending, right? We are within this range if you include like a trend line. Let's say we found support exactly there again, 526, and kind of within the uptrending range here. Quite interesting. Let's look at a 30-minute. Yeah, like I said, right, this is the high that was formed, this strong downside news that we saw in the market ever since the beginning of April, right? February, March started to decline the triple Q, and then the tariff announcement came, boom, tanked the market. Started to see a little bit of a bid here, of a bounce pretty much. We saw one of an intense volume here on this candle of April 4th at around 11. We saw intense candle, and we saw a bid, and then we formed a higher low. So this was a low that was formed, and then we formed a higher low. So it was kind of prompting us that there was underlying strength, but we'd only be long basically the market if we close above this swing high anchored VWAP, pretty much the high, showing us that the reversal was taking place here in the market, and we actually did, right? So ever since the beginning of May, the market has only been uptrending from here, and that's quite nice to see. But it's like we're having difficulty, we're moving up, but we're having difficulty getting close to those all-time highs. We're still less than 2% from achieving those highs, but it looks like each time there's less, I'd say, vigor of reaching that price target. that price level, and we kind of need some type of catalyst, really bullish to finally get above those all-time highs that we achieved in early 2025 here of 540 on the Qs. But yeah, it seems there's something that doesn't want us to go above that. And also with this nice golden cross here, kind of signified the upward momentum. And when these crosses are more, how do I say it, they're more effective on longer term trends, on longer term charts, instead of a trend on a 30-minute chart or on a daily is more effective and more likely to hold and continue than a trend being established on a 1 minute or a 5-minute chart, when it's very prone to fail. It's higher probability of failure of a trend on a shorter time frame compared to the overall longer term time frames, right? So we kind of got to take that into account when we are here intraday trading the markets, right? Let's see, on a 1 hour chart, we always gotta look at the longer term time frames. Yeah, that was the breakout pretty much, the 470 long. Honestly, if I would have been long, I'd say probably would have placed an option strike price, probably 450 strike price. And looking at the longer term, I would have pretty much no need at all to get out of my position, because we're still trending, we're still holding above this EMA. Slope has been rising over time. It was 477, and it's slowly increasing over time. We've had a little bit of wicks and kind of going above and below the 50 EMA, but we've been holding quite strongly the 200 EMA, showing resilience overall in the market despite the news that we've been seeing. Then right now recently, the Middle East tensions, unfortunately, that are making headlines, right? It's not good news to have a story like that make headlines overall. But and surprisingly, the market is still holding up. I expected more of a downside move based on those reactions, the headlines. But yeah, the market is still strong. I don't see any type of crash here on the market unless we kind of see some negative news. We may try to go to 540, may have a rejection, maybe a double top. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty, but right now the market is holding quite strong so far if we're looking at a longer term time frame. You can also look at a daily chart, and it's just still strong, right? Still strong. There's no areas of pretty much resistance until that area there, right there. So 540, kind of using Fibonacci levels, kind of see where we can go on the overall market. If we do see the continued strength, you would have to use Fibonacci levels and see the extent of the move from this pullback. So this would technically be defined as a pullback within the overall longer term trend, right? Because the market has been trending overall since 2023, right? That's why it's important to zoom out. This was just a more deeper, intense pullback. So analyzing here and looking at the extent of the overall move here on the overall triple Qs in this case, because it's more heavily in technology and inclined on that, we prompt that towards the low, and we've been finding support here, holding quite well the 0.786 retracement. We haven't pulled back to this 0.618, but we would do 100% of the extended move here at 625. And in order to get above that and have the price action, we would have to see a break, probably hold above that, and slowly start to see those higher lows being forming higher highs and higher lows, and slowly going towards that. But in order to see this movement and break those all-time highs in the market, we have to see maybe more bullish news, something that can fully ride the market towards the upside, right? And firmly, when we saw this strong decline, there was a lot of fear. The VIX was just at increasing heavily. Tariffs was a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, the tariffs and the overall numbers that were being equated to weren't, I'd say, economically feasible over the term that they were being possibly going to be sustained. So it was obvious that there was going to be some type of reduction in the tariffs, especially with China, right? It's too dependent on trade, and we can't just simply impose such high tariff rates that we know are not going to be sustained at those higher rates that were being, stated within parts of the administration. And so seeing that, a lot of people probably had fear, and it's understandable. And probably saw a lot of people, maybe having long puts, probably playing that through options, and they probably expected more downside move, right? But then we saw maybe I think it was a pause in tariffs or something like that, and we had this nice candlestick. Basically, I think it was one of the highest rallies we've seen since World War II. This April 9th made headlines on that day. It was a very big move here on the overall markets, and that kind of went against what people were seeing at that time, right? There was a lot of fear, and I believe there was a lot of people that started to get short squeezed, right? So people slowly started to cover, which only added to the fire, and buyers slowly recuperate, and only these people. And that's why I believe that we saw such a rapid recuperation in price, that we it wasn't too long ago that we were at these highs, like April. How long ago was that? April, we're in June, right? So 2 months we saw in 2 months we saw such a big move towards the highs. And I believe that we saw such a rapid pretty much how do I say it, such a rapid recovery here in the markets would be because a lot of people, they got short squeezed essentially, right? Because there was a lot of uncertainty, and that's where we've seen this move. So overall the market is looking strong longer term, right? So that's why when we're in doubt, we got to zoom out. Also looking at a weekly, it's been bullish. The overall market tends to be bullish here, but that's why when we're in doubt, we got to zoom out always, right? So in this case here, let's, for example, look at let's say in this case Tesla, right? One of the biggest movers. Let's see, TSLL. We'll do that through TSLL. Let's see, take that off. Okay. So we quite frankly see that we were at all-time highs of, in this case, 40. Same thing as Tesla. It's just as TSLL. It's a derivative. But we were all-time highs of, in this case, 40 for this TSLL. And we saw a strong decline, obviously, with the involvement of Elon Musk with the administration and all that mess that was being seen with Doge and all that, which just prompted the stock to sell. And there's a lot of fear in investors overall that Elon Musk wasn't quite focused here on the company, that he wouldn't have time to focus on Tesla, especially with the rising competition, a decrease in market share against competitors here like BYD, especially in China. So there was a lot of fear in Tesla at the moment, right? And now you could pretty much say that we've found a bottom, obviously, at around this level here of, let's say, $6, right? And right now what we're doing is let's see, let me take this off. We are kind of setting, so pretty much there's stages in the market. Let me just kind of emphasize that for you guys. So let's see, market structure. Let's see, structure. Let's see, images. See if I can find one for you guys exactly. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's see. There it is. We found it. So you guys just stick on with me. So basically, the overall market tends to see these type of trend structures. So what we're seeing on Tesla right now is that we are in accumulation phase, right? So we tend to see, maybe if we open image, a new tab, and just zoom it in right there, right? So what happens is we see a strong decline, and there's just pure fear. Slowly but surely we start to see and start to find a bottom here on the overall stock, whatever's trading, right? trying to find the bottom, and it's slowly starting to ease in. So what happens here is that sellers slowly start to back away, and some buyers start to kind of form the low, and we started seeing some accumulation in price. So it's pretty much buyers slowly adding into the position, trying to add in, pretty much build, and sellers slowly stepping away as we don't see any further declines. Slowly above that, we see a break above that range, which would prompt, and usually see a test that would prompt up the markup phase, which is the big leg of the movement towards the upside. And then eventually we see the same thing again, some distribution, sellers, buyers slowly starting to step back, sellers starting to, being more aggressive, and then we break above it, and then we start that distribution phase, that decline towards the downside. And that's what we've been seeing in Tesla. That's basic market structure, right? So during this case here, we were kind of, we could say, in here, between this range here and here, before here. So put that there. So from here to here, we were in a pretty much a accumulation phase. We're kind of building up, right? Building up, and then we finally broke above that range. So 16. That prompted us for the markup phase, which was pretty much here, right? From here to here, that was the markup phase. Okay. After that, we started to see some distribution, right? We broke below that, and that prompted now the decline. Right? So let me just clear this up again. And right now what we're seeing is the same thing. We've been declining, right? And now we're starting to see the accumulation. So in order to be long again Tesla and start the markup phase, we would have to see again, a break above it, probably a retest most likely, to give us that extra confidence, and break above right there. That would be a long of 21. That would prompt now the move towards the upside. Also, it would finally get above its swing high anchored VWAP, from those highs. This was kind of failed, and like I said, when we're within this range, they tend to wear you out, like I say, right? They tend to, find more reasons to, kind of, sellers are still present, but buyers are slowly, coming in and picking up the price. And within this range, it's just pretty much a mess. It's very difficult to, trade this pretty much intraday, because, we're pretty much, if you zoom out on a daily, we're in a pretty much rangy movement here ever since March towards now. So 6 months of just pure range, right? The stock hasn't been able to break above yet, quite frankly. So it's still like this, right? So it does become hard to trade that. I think we can compare this to, let's say, NVDA, which has been different beast, right? It's been quite well to trade, and we'll look at that through the ETF here, NVDA, which is just the NVDA double long shares. That's what we're starting to see now on NVIDIA, right? So taking advantage of that, right? So we saw a decline, accumulation of price, and we're starting to see the markup, right? And the next area of resistance would be $69 here on NVDL, which is just the double longs here on NVIDIA. And we'd like to see, hopefully, the price continue to appreciate, slowly, form higher lows and higher highs, and not, break above. Break above here, and not break below, for example, the most recent and relevant higher low, which would be in this case $47.91 here. So that's what we would do if following the trend structure. Here, for example, on Tesla, it's just kind of say a broken stock. I'd say just leave it alone. If you're going to swing trade this, I don't see any advantage into doing it, because you're pretty much going to get waked out. And even if you try to play this through options, you're going to have data against you, unless you set that, go for a leap. If your analysis is really bullish and you believe Tesla is going to the moon, then go for it. It's all whatever you can manage, whatever you can handle, and obviously based off good risk management and analysis, right? Don't risk more than what you can afford to lose, right? That's always rule number one, right? Especially in the markets, to survive another day here. So apart from that, I think I'll leave it at that for today, and I hope you guys enjoy this live stream. We'll be live again on Sunday to have the prep before the market opens and see what's expected for the week. We'll be going live, looking at tickers that are going to be in play as well, and also economic data that's projected for the week ahead, and as well also key earnings or any type of key events in order to stay up to date with the market. And we will also be releasing on the newsletter. We'll also be having the trade of the week, so we usually always have that here on the watch list section here. So we go to the watch list and we go to, for example, the trade of the week. So in this case, that one was Datadog, and it's starting to look up, right? So now for the next week, we'll also be posting basically this same thing, the trade of the week, and a reason behind it. Quick 2-minute read, just to stay informed basically on why we're bullish on it, the fundamentals, and also the technical drivers that are moving the price up higher. So that would be our price target, stuff like that, everything included for that. So we're gonna be going live, and also stay ahead of the overall, the podcast is also going to be having a new episode on Sunday. So Sunday's pure filled with value, so you guys stay up to date with the markets. And we'll be going like I said, live, and having a video today, actually Friday, posted at 1 p.m. So it's a topic that's really going to have you guys really invested in the markets, and give you guys that edge here, especially that many traders look for. So be on the lookout for the video today at 1. And apart from that, hope you guys enjoyed the trend, and as always, don't let the markets whip you guys out. I'll see you guys on the next one.